Hey friends, wanted to show off my new shirt that came in the mail today. This is Babylon the Great was Jerusalem. Just wanted to make a few videos showing how we could know who the Bible teaches Babylon the Great was and how we can know that it was Jerusalem. But before make those arguments, and maybe I'll make them down in future videos, and there's probably about 7 or 8 ways you can identify Babylon the Great as Jerusalem. Some of them are like concrete and you're like, oh, okay, that's obvious. And then some of them are just more evidence that Babylon the Great was Jerusalem. But I just wanted to talk about Babylon the Great real quick and maybe get your thoughts on who you think Babylon the Great is and who it was supposed to be. So maybe you could just drop them in the comments. And I bet there will be answers like Babylon the Great is the United Kingdom or America or the American churches, or maybe Babylon the Great is the Roman Catholic Church, or is Rome, or is some future Babylonian city in the Middle East somewhere. Maybe you think it's China. So just maybe put in the comments who you think Babylon the Great is, who you think the Bible teaches Babylon the Great is. It's called Mystery Babylon. One thing about mysteries, in the New Testament, the way the Bible uses the word mystery is something that was formerly hidden but now is revealed. So it's something that's revealed to you. And we're going to see how it's revealed to have been Jerusalem. But if you think that there's some reason that we should believe it's some other city, please put that in the comment who you think it is, and maybe a little bit about why you might be drawn to that conclusion. But I wanted to show you something that was always difficult to me whenever I was studying to try to find out who Babylon the Great was, and that was how the reaction of the kings and of the mariners, especially the mariners, the shipmasters, whenever Babylon the Great was finally destroyed. I always thought their reaction was very odd. And so let's just look at a couple verses. In the book of Revelation, chapter 17, it says, one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls, in chapter 16 was all about the bowls being poured out, came to me and said, come, I will show you the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication. The inhabitants of the earth have been were made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he shows them a lot about Babylon the Great. Now, in verse right here at the end of 17, the last vials poured out, and Babylon the Great, let's see where it says that. And Babylon the Great was remembered before God to give to her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. And the great city was divided into 3 parts. So that's Babylon the Great being destroyed, but here's just the angels telling him more details about its destruction and how it would fall in 1 hour. And it says that the kings of the earth lament over her, but it also says the merchants of the earth lament over her. And I always thought this is very strange. So the kings that are mentioned, I'll read what they say. The kings of the earth who committed fornication and lived luxuriously with her will weep and lament for her when they see the smoke of her burning. So it's a city that's burned with fire, standing at a distance for fear of her torment, saying, alas, alas, that great city Babylon. So Babylon is the great city of Revelation. That mighty city, for in 1 hour your judgment has come. So it's sudden. That's what these kings are saying. It's sudden. The destruction has come sudden. And finally, at that last vial being poured out, that last bowl judgment. Now let's look what the merchants say. And this is very odd. I think you'll find this very odd. You've probably noticed this before as you've studied it through. Look what they have to say. And the merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over her, for no one buys their merchandise anymore. Merchandise of gold and silver, precious stones. It mentions all these things. And look what they say. It says, the merchants of these things who became rich by her will stand at a distance for fear of her torment, weeping and wailing and saying, alas, alas, that great city, which was clothed with fine linen, purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls. For in 1 hour, or suddenly, such great riches come to nothing. Every shipmaster, all who travel by ship, sailors and as many as trade but on the sea stood at a distance and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What is like this great city? And threw dust on their heads and cried out, weeping and wailing, saying, Alas, alas, that great city, in which all who had ships in the sea became rich by her wealth, for in 1 hour she is made desolate. What's the problem with that? Well, the problem with it, if you were just reading, you would notice it if you were just reading the whole book of Revelation through. The problem is all kinds of plagues and calamities have come on the earth throughout these chapters. And if you look at the second and third vial, right? So that's the seventh vial. She's finally judged. Babylon the Great came into remembrance to give her the judgment, right? But look what it says back in the second and third vial. Then the second poured out his bowl on the sea, and it became blood as a dead man, and every living creature in the sea died. The third angel poured out its bowl on the rivers and springs of water, and they became blood. And I heard the angel of the waters saying, You are righteous, O Lord, the one who is and who was and who is to come, or is to be, because you have judged these things, for they have shed the blood of saints and prophets, and you have given them blood to drink, for it is their due. And I heard another from the altar saying, Even so, Lord God Almighty, for true and righteous are your judgments. What in the world are these guys complaining about their livelihood, their merchandise not being bought anymore? These shipmasters who travel on the sea, when the seas are blood. You know, it's like, don't they have bigger problems? So are these guys just not logical? Are they just totally blind? Do they not realize all the waters became blood? And then, okay, so that was an indication to me that I'm not understanding something right. So, well, what is the right answer? You know, how do you resolve this? Well, the Babylon the Great was Jerusalem. 1st century, first covenant, 70 AD Jerusalem. When the Romans came through and burned her with fire, these scriptures were fulfilled, that her judgment came in 1 hour. And when you look at the waters being turned to blood, well, this is apocalyptic literature, and it's God's own people coming into, his first covenant community coming into final judgment because they rejected the Christ in the new covenant. And whenever he talked about judgments in the Old Testament times on different nations, like, old Babylon or Assyria or Egypt or whatever, they would employ apocalyptic language to talk about its destruction. They would talk about the sun not giving its light, the moon be darkened, the stars fall to the earth shaking. Behold, I will shake the heavens and the earth. I will shake all nations. It's always all this kind of apocalyptic. You can see it in Psalm 18. Isaiah 34, Isaiah 24 through 27, Isaiah 14, it's in Ezekiel. There's a lot of places where God, when judgment on a nation, when judgment on Edom in Isaiah 34, he talks about the mountains being turned to burning sulfur and pitch. Whenever he was bringing a severe judgment on a land, he would use apocalyptic literature. Well, when God is going to bring severe judgment on his own first covenant, the inhabitants of Israel, he's going to max out on the apocalyptic language. And so everything in Revelation isn't to be understood literal. Just like the candlesticks were not to be understood literally as candlesticks. They were representative of churches. And the beast that rises up out of the sea in chapter 13 is not talking about a big monster that's going to come and start stomping on people. It's just like Daniel chapter 7. These 4 beasts coming up out of the sea represented different kingdoms. The book of Revelation is a symbolic book. So when he talks about the waters be turning to blood, that can be, and I think it is, symbolic of, it means a lot of people are going to be dead, killed, and thrown into the sea, and it's going to be bloody because all the corpses there. And that's exactly what happened when the Romans came through in 70 AD, killing the Jews. They would just throw the bodies out on the ground, whether the birds, the vultures would come and gobble them up, or they would throw them in the water and they'd float down the river to the next city. And so, out in the Mediterranean, there were sea battles between the Jews and the Romans, and the waters would be, the sea being turned to blood. So this is just apocalyptic literature, and that's how come these mariners are not all, you know, that's why they're really concerned about their city of Jerusalem being destroyed, because they're not really worried about the waters being turned to blood, because the waters weren't really turned to blood. That's just symbolic of the destruction of the Jews by the Romans. But they are worried about the city, Jerusalem, coming to destruction, because she was a huge, massive, luxurious hub. It was the capital of the whole Jewish empire, which was very wealthy at that time. Herod had brought great wealth and progress to the nation economically. And the mariners, who were constantly bringing these things that were being bought by the inhabitants of Jerusalem and the surrounding districts, were being made wealthy through this city. And that was all coming to an end. So that's why they are worried about this city and not the waters being turned to blood. Anyway, wanted to introduce that idea to you. And hopefully, Lord willing, in the next few videos, I'm going to show how you can know biblically that Jerusalem was Babylon the Great. How you can know, just as the shirt says, or the other way around, Babylon the Great was Jerusalem. How you can know for sure. You can come away confidently knowing, I know, and I know even where to show it. The Bible proves it's a mystery who Babylon the Great is, something formerly hidden but now revealed. The readers, the first century readers of this book of Revelation, would have been able to be confident about who Babylon the Great was. They could have said, the Laodiceans could have said, oh, I see what you're saying here in this letter to us. You're saying Jerusalem's Babylon the Great and it's about to be destroyed. They would have known. And so we're going to look at how you can know from the book of Revelation and other places exactly who this city is. So anyway, hopefully I'll see you in the next video. God bless you.